Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Breaking news in the fight over Trump's tax returns. Lawyers for Deutsche Bank confirming the firm holds tax returns relating to subpoenas for Trump, his companies, and his immediate family members. The bank will not publicly confirm exactly who those returns belong to, claiming that would reveal specific details about how its customers conduct business. It is the latest twist in House Democrats' legal battle to get Trump's financial records. In fact, late last week, judges clashing with Deutsche Bank lawyers on this very issue.
Does the bank have tax returns of any of the named people or entities?
Your Honor, given contractual obligations and other legal obligations, that's unfortunately not a question that we're able to address. The bank has contractual...
What privilege are you asserting?
The bank has contractual obligations to its clients related to confidential...
Do you think you can contract away the opportunity to answer a court's question without a privilege such as the Fifth Amendment or something comparable? You can just say, we told our client we won't do it?
So the judge is clearly skeptical of Deutsche Bank's argument, but it even got more heated.
I'm not asking you for the content of them at all. I'm asking you, do you have them?
Even just answering that question, I think, could run afoul of...
You think it could?
Yeah, Your Honor. We're not in a position to answer that question based on the relevant statutes.
If we want to answer that question, we go to a court and seek an order?
Well, we'd be happy...
I'm serious.
The judge is, in fact, serious, and so is Congress. In fact, last week, the lawyer for Democrats in this case revealing that they are investigating, quote, massive amounts of Russian money, including possible money laundering. I'm now joined by David Enrich, New York Times finance editor, who is writing a book about Trump's relationship with Deutsche Bank, and Maya Wiley, a former civil prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. David, let's start with you. First of all, you've been investigating this. When you look at what the news came out today, what do these filings realistically tell us?
Well, the bottom line here is that we now know beyond any doubt that Deutsche Bank is sitting on a vast trove of Trump's personal and corporate financial records, not just his tax returns, but all sorts of other corporate records going back over the full scale of the bank's 20-year relationship with him. These tax returns themselves, it's unclear how useful those are going to be. My understanding is that the bank has kind of the first summary pages, the first 2 or 3 or 4 pages of tax returns for a number of different years. And so it's unclear to me how useful that actually is going to be. It's certainly not as useful as if you had all the schedules attached and all of the minute detail, which is where I know Democrats and certainly a lot of journalists have been for years now dying to get their hands on.
Yeah, so to that point, how does this, Maya, help the Democrats in their legal cases? They continue to piece more information if, in fact, as David was saying, that it's not the full scope of the tax returns with all the schedules and how comprehensive or extensive it is. What, if anything, does this change in the game?
Well, I think there are actually 2 issues here. So one is, of course, the more information Democrats can get, the more likelihood they're able to identify whether there are other sources or other people they should be subpoenaing records from. So that's one reason why investigators, in this case Congress, would want the most information they can get around his tax returns. I agree with David around how much information they're really going to get is an important question. But the other is the legal issue. The Trump administration has taken, first of all, Donald Trump himself has taken a very aggressive and legally weak argument that essentially says, this is just a political attack on me, and I have a right to privacy despite holding the most powerful chair in the country.
Yeah, you bring that up, and let me play this for you really quickly because you brought up his reaction to all this. He's been extremely defensive about it. Watch what he said in the past.
Maybe I'm going to do the tax returns when Obama does his birth certificate.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely.
What is your tax rate?
It's none of your business. You'll see it when I release.
You don't release your returns until the audit's complete. When the audit's complete, I'll do it. My tax returns against my lawyer's wishes. When she releases her 33,000 emails, I became president. No, I don't think they care at all.
Why is he so defensive, to the point that you were making, his defense? Why is he so defensive about his tax returns?
So we've heard several things so far that suggest reasons he might be defensive. One, for example, is New York Times reporting about how much money he has lost. There is certainly the factor of running on being an excellent businessman with perhaps a financial record that shows you're not. Mm-hmm. The second is implications in whether he's overstating earnings, overstating deductions, implications about whether he's actually committed tax fraud, for example, or insurance fraud for that matter. Michael Cohen got up and said he did these kinds of things all the time and suggested that might be a problem. But third, and this is where the counterintelligence point comes in, right? The Counterintelligence Committee also wants this information because Robert Mueller all but confirmed counterintelligence investigation of the FBI. Not that surprising. Lots of reasons to suspect there might be ongoing investigations of some form. Deutsche Bank is a bank that has been in bed with Russia for a long time, and it is one of the only banks that would lend money to Donald Trump. So, if you want to understand whether or not Russia has any leverage over Donald Trump, that's a good place to look.
All right, so I feel like we have the perfect guest to answer that question for us. You've been looking at the relationship between Donald Trump and Deutsche Bank for the past 20 years. Without giving away all of the reporting, unless you want to give away the key nugget of what you've found, tell us a little bit about this relationship. Why has it become the focal point, as Maya was saying, in this three-way nexus between Russia, Deutsche Bank, and Donald Trump?
Well, as she said, Deutsche Bank is the only mainstream bank that has been willing to touch Donald Trump consistently for the past 2 decades. And it's also one of the only mainstream banks in the world that has been deep in bed and in hock with the Russian government and with Russian banks tied to the Kremlin and with people very close to Putin. So that, most generous explanation is that it's an incredible coincidence. But the reality is, based on the reporting we've done, there are people inside Deutsche Bank, in the compliance department and in the anti-money laundering parts of the bank, where they were seeing suspicious stuff with Jared Kushner's accounts, with Donald Trump's accounts, and people repeatedly tried to blow the whistle, and their concerns were overruled because the bank was so desperate to keep making money off of these very lucrative clients. Donald Trump clearly is very eager to keep his finances secret. Right. The bottom line is we don't quite know why, but it's clearly for some reason, and I think sooner or later we're probably going to find out.
Yeah, we'll see if, in fact, these Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee will find out. Maya Wiley, David Inrich, thank you both very much.
It is Wednesday, the 28th of August of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid me of this priest? Well, of course, we all know it's just a lovely, fluffy egg dish with velvety hollandaise sauce made to perfection. In the Manhattan style, I might add. And with a little West Coast tweak. Okay. Well, the world is teetering on edge still. We should be aware that the apocalypse has been foretold starting about 70 years after the supposed demise of, Jesus Christ. That personage. Isn't it weird? And then, about every 10 years, 10 to 15 years or so, the world's going to end. That has, I would presume, that would have a genetic marker somewhere on that double helix because we are adaptable human beings, and if we're teetering on edge, I would think that whatever chemicals are generated from that teetering might be passed on as a defect in which we adapt from, for good or ill. Okay, well, we could speak about that for quite a while, but Stephen Gold is dead. Dead. So we're going to have to speak about a bunch of other things in the more immediate, short-term temporal plane, sort of like what was going on at the top there with Trump's tax returns finally being admitted by Deutsche Bank. And of course, we got some other news coming out since, and I didn't really want to put it in today's news read, because even though it came from Lawrence and he's his source, I still wanted to hold off just a tad, because I have conjectured, I mean, without any proof. All you have to do is look at actions, and you know that Trump had some Russian oligarch backing for those Deutsche Bank loans. You know it. And I don't understand this defense from Deutsche Bank. Well, if a government lawful entity is investigating crimes, they're not allowed to look at how we do business with our clients or how our clients do business. What the hell? That's exactly what financial crime investigators are looking at. Well, I suppose that if you're as stupid as the people who voted for Trump, and I don't mean that in a bad way. No, I mean it in a very, well, look, there's been a double-blind study. And it has been proven that by and large, the Trump voter believes that Trump is much smarter than they are. And I think there's a world consensus about how, like Trump isn't really, the sharpest knife in the drawer, shall we say. Okay. So what does that say about the people who think that he's smarter than they are? What does that say? Well, I'm telling you, they love this. Apparently, they want to see the destruction of the earth. Who knew that all of these Trump voter types would be a bunch of Jerry Rubins wanting to sit around after the destruction of the whole dominant paradigm and just groove on the rubble? Who knew? I suspected it because they always griped. They always griped about things that we on the left, or hippies, when I was a hippie for a very brief period of time because they were a little bit older than me. Okay? It was easy to slide into punkhood because when you're rebelling, well, you rebel. And who might you rebel against? Well, Nonetheless, when the hippies first started being kicked, the invectives hurled our way didn't ring true, because what the hell are these squares talking about? It's almost like they're doing what they're whining about. Yeah, because the whole idea of hippiehood was being out front, truthful. Don't hide your anger. If you got anger, just let it out and admit it. But no, they had to project. You hippies. Well, when we used to have these arguments, and especially since now it's Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, with, the slight little reference to, religiosity, shall we say? Order. When we made these conjectures about why do we have to have religion to force people to be good people? People will be good people. No, they won't. No, they won't. If religion is the only thing that might keep people from raping, pillaging, and creating war, then let's keep religion. Unfortunately, they use religion as an excuse to do all that. Okay. Well, there's so much news going on in the world. Bolsonaro has put in the military to fight the fires. Yeah, he's going to, like I said yesterday, he's going to kill the Indians. And then when they're all gone, oh, look, pristine virgin land. All for us. All for us. Okay, I thought, when you had sort of like a conservation fund that was supposed to offset, but he wants to spend the money the way he wants to spend it. He'll take that aid that the international community would like to give him. I got to say it's a pittance, but still it's aid. He will take it if he determines where it's going to go. Sort of like, maybe into the little police death squad so they can go through the favelas and kill as many people as possible because, they're in the way. Look at them. Hovels. It's such an eyesore. All right, this is the world we live in. Guy's insulting Macron's wife, and he's telling Macron that he's got to apologize to him for the insults. Macron's got to apologize to Bolsonaro for Bolsonaro's insults? I don't quite understand the logic, but this is the prevailing dominant paradigm we have in a certain level of Western politics. And now it's all coming to the fore. Deutsche Bank has said and admitted, yeah, we can't tell you whose tax returns in the individual one's family it is. It's all of them. And their friends, too. Is proof that the bank is sitting on a trove of records telling the full scale of the bank's 20-year relationship with the scofflaw. Mm-hmm. The reason Trump does not want any of this exposed, and when the Deutsche Bank lawyer said in front of that panel, that judicial panel, it would expose the business dealings of our clients, he means Tony Soprano. All right. And if it was only Tony Soprano, it would be okay. But it also includes, Deripaska and every single Russian oligarch that's pumped their money and laundered it through Deutsche Bank. Which, I should remind folks, have already paid a fine for what? Laundering Russian oligarch money. And I might add just one little conjecture in the midst of this as well. What the hell was Anthony Kennedy's son doing there? And what the hell did Anthony Kennedy do? Quitting early. And what's up with his son? Well, we know he doesn't work for Deutsche Bank anymore. The appearance and all. But the damage is already done. Vlad works that way, It's all so very convenient. Alrighty, what's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays? Well, the William Barr DOJ is allowing Trump political appointees to overrule immigration law judges because we don't need those stupid judges. We just need a security force. Tell them, go away. Yeah, Trump. We're going to tell you to go away, and we're going to put you there. Steve King claims his math proves immigrants can take over his district in 6 months, but he just won't promise. Well, I wish he would. And with the stench of Stephen Miller lingering in the fetid heat, the Trump administration is cutting off life-saving medical aid to some immigrants just because it can. Cruelty is the point. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a Spanish warship sailed halfway across the Mediterranean to pick up 15 migrants in a high-profile maneuver that sharply contrasted Italy's refusal to accept them. And Japan issued emergency warnings after life-threatening record-level rains inundated the southern island of Kyushu. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page, right there at the social media scroll is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Link, and thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the page, from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. All kidding aside, you will notice our Patreon link, and please, please, please do become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. We've been doing this continuously for 8 years. Yes, continuous, 24/7, 365. Resistance Radio. Resisting as the founders originally intended way before the Constitution was even ratified, even before it was written. Because that's our mandate, and we're sticking to it. And we've been able to do that because of your civic responsibility to be generous in allowing us to do our civic responsibility. Where am I going with this? You know where I'm going with this. We are so forever grateful to your generosity. And, all kidding aside, once again, we need you to continue doing it. Bills need to be paid. And though the bulk of what we do here comes out of our own pockets, you are truly our biggest contributor, and we thank you so very much for being so. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom, for taking care of that. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime. And then I truly scramble to get those links out on social media. There's a lot going on in that scramble period. There really is. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. That's like almost a separate entity now instead of iTunes. Weird. But wherever podcasts can be found, we're going to be there in the billions of them. And we're down in the W's. You'll find us, West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Okay, got that out of the way. Let's see now. Let's get into our first offering here. In the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy comes out of Share Blue Media by Lisa Needham. Well, it looks like a new rule from the Department of Justice. Wow, one of those weird OLC memos. Weird, isn't it? They just keep popping up. Gives a political appointee chosen by William Barr the authority to toss immigration law decisions they don't like. You know, like having immigration. Isn't that what we're talking about? They keep telling everybody we're going to come and take away all their guns. And all we're asking for is maybe, liability insurance, product liability, or ability to file a product liability lawsuit, or even just a safety lock on the gun. And they say we're going to take, you want to take all of our guns away. And yet we give them these little things, and what do? They want to get rid of the whole. Okay, no wonder they keep saying we want to take away their guns, because they want to take away the whole of democracy. And they're doing pretty good at it, too. Because the administration just took another step to undermine the independence of immigration law judges, and I would say by extension, judges in general. Who needs the law when you make the law? Wow. I didn't know that Propecia had the ability to give someone delusions of grandeur. Maybe it does. Maybe it's not the Propecia is what I'm trying to say. All right. This time, it's allowing immigration courts to overrule immigration law judges on cases. Now, a Trump political appointee will be in the position of being able to simply discard the ruling of judges. Right now, only the Attorney General can overrule decisions from immigration law judges. Both Sessions and Barr have used this power already to limit who can get asylum. However, it's intended to be an extraordinary little-used power. The DOJ's new rule, which went into effect on Monday. You didn't hear about that now, did you? I wonder why. Gives the head of the Executive Office for Immigration Review authority to do whatever and whenever they want. The EOIR director, what would that be? I guess that would be EOR director is appointed by the Attorney General and doesn't have to be confirmed by the Senate. How convenient. I keep telling you these OLC memos. I had no idea they were so filed so well, so that they could be found by the little burrowers, burrowing in and undermining the fabric of our lawful society, looking for this little thing that we can tweak and this little thing that we can use. A little used, rarely used power. Oh, we're going to use it all the time now. Ashley Tabador, who is president of the National Association of Immigration Judges. The Judges Union said that this rule change substitutes the policy directives of a single political appointee over the legal analysis of non-political independent adjudicators, replacing independent assessment with political policy, said Tabador, means that the immigration court system has effectively been dismantled. When you are deconstructing the administrative state, of course you're going to use the law against itself, especially when you have these weird OLC memos popping up out of nowhere so very conveniently. This next offering here in the Bistro Cafe, a West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, comes our way also by Share Blue Media, this time by Oliver Willis. Well, King, that being Steve King, claims that his math proves immigrants can take over his district in 6 months. But, of course, we all know that the math that Steve King follows is so heavy that you have to have some cantaloupe calves to be able to carry it across the desert. Oh, my God. Well, he says that he was at a town hall meeting, and he also cited a study from a white supremacist group to prove his point. Well, King claimed in a town hall meeting yesterday, Tuesday, that according to his math, his congressional district was in danger of being overrun by immigrants in 6 months, but damn it, he just won't promise that that's true. Please let it be true. Why won't it be? I did the math on this, King told voters attending the meeting. How long will it take before an entire congressional district is supplanted by illegal aliens? Yeah. King noted that his district, Iowa's 4th congressional district, has about 750,000 people, and that when divided by the purported number of migrants entering the United States every 24 weeks, an entire congressional district is supplanted by illegal aliens with cantaloupe calves. That's 2 congressional seats a year, King reasoned. And then he extrapolated upon that number to further fearmonger. You could have 50 congressional seats replaced and supplanted by non-citizens, illegal aliens that have no lawful presence in the United States. Wow, he's such a venomous snake now, isn't he? Now, King also cited a study from the group Federation for American Immigration Reform. Oh, FAIR. Yeah, which has been labeled by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a designated hate group with ties to white supremacist groups. Now, in fairness to journalistic practice, we should point out that white supremacist groups cite the Southern Poverty Law Center as the hate group. Just so we're clear about how both sides are treated in this matter. Now, according to King, the study proved that 6 congressional seats in California wouldn't exist if they didn't have an illegal population. Wow. He's saying that from the flatlands of Iowa. Okay. I got to tell you, King, we grow better. Or we. Here I am still pushing my Californian identity when it hasn't been so for quite some time. But we'll just expand my identity to the West Coast. And I'll point out to Steve King that there might be some argument that California, San Joaquin Valley grows better corn. And why not demagogue California? I mean, that's where all the brown people are living. All those liberals are just letting all those brown people come in here, destroying America. Well, I got to tell you, anybody who thinks that you need cantaloupe calves to carry bales of marijuana across the desert so that you can fund your illegal presence in the United States and then go on welfare, I would conjecture you have a cantaloupe for a brain. Final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy also comes our way by Share Blue Media, this time by Lisa Needham once again. Well, the Trump administration is taking another step to harm immigrants. This time it's by cutting off their access to life-saving medical care. It's a breathtakingly cruel move, but it's also the sort that has become routine under this administration. And I tell you, I kid you not, I was not being rhetorical. I was not embellishing. I smell the fetid stench of Stephen Miller. And I will repeat, when all this is said and done, this thing, this creature, needs to be held to account. Am I dehumanizing him? Am I? We shall not normalize the monsters among us, please. There's nothing Frankensteinish. There's nothing likable about a Stephen Miller. Please. When we're done with him here and he serves his time, he will be shipped off to The Hague. I will make it my life's quest to make that so. However long I have left, because I've been here for a while now. You know, they give you an expiration date, damn it. Damn it. I want more life, effer. Okay, back to Lisa Needham's story here. Up until earlier this month, immigrants who might otherwise be deported were able to stay in the country if they or a relative were receiving life-saving medical care. So apparently all of these scofflaws, who's the real scofflaw here, Donnie and Stephen, all of these people are just gaming the system to stay here when they're not legally allowed. This program, apparently put in place by some bleeding heart liberal who wants to tear at the core of what is the fabric of true America, and I guess they think the fabric of true America that we're tearing apart is one of racism, arbitrary lynchings, or just how about lynchings to make a point. We are impinging upon their First Amendment rights to express themselves. What we're doing is that we're sending these unfortunates back to their home countries in which they do not have the medical capabilities to attend to these people. We're sending them to their deaths because we can. I will argue that the moral fabric of this country is not the Stephen Millers, not the Donnie Two Scoops, not the John Boltons, etc., 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 but something tremendously more loving, neighborly, and community-oriented. Indeed. All right, let's get to our break. And when we come back from the break, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Not Blinded. The universality of music is well recognized and figures prominently in arguments that people everywhere are more alike than different. In the new film Blinded by the Light, it's the 16-year-old son of Pakistani immigrants who finds inspiration in the music and lyrics of American rocker Bruce Springsteen. Based on a biographical memoir by journalist Sarfraz Manzoor, the co-writer here, the story picks up in 1988 in Luton, an industrial suburb near London, in the midst of the Thatcher-induced economic meltdown and its resultant social problems. It's a coming-of-age and an acculturation story in which Javed, played by newcomer Vivek Kalra, has to deal with a traditional father, arrogant schoolmates and their unwoke parents, as well as the outright racism of local National Front thugs. When a fellow student turns the poetry-writing Javed onto the boss, he suddenly finds a kindred spirit in the faux downtrodden New Jerseyite, declaring in one scene, "Bruce knows everything I've ever felt." Director Gorinda Chadha has visited the acculturation part of this tale before, in 2002's Bend It Like Beckham, and the feel here is similar, that of a comedy drama, this one not afraid to confront ugly reality, as it does in portraying the National Front's violence and rhetoric, which, as we now know, is confined neither to the UK or the 1980s. Though there's plenty of cliché here, and there seems to be a glut of movies about South Asians acclimating through music, think Yesterday and Bohemian Rhapsody, Blinded by the Light comes across as earnest and insightful, deftly maneuvering from straight-up musical scenes to near docudrama. Add a good cast and the music and visually incorporated lyrics of The Boss, and this one will delight all but the most cynical about pop culture. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair? Or...
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey, kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
If you like sugar, the full-page photograph in the recent New York Times Magazine of a typical enormous chain store candy display should warm your heart, but the accompanying headline and story should send shudders up and down your spine. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. The article, part of the 1619 Project, is written by Harvard professor Khalil Gibran Muhammad, and the large font text in the page facing the photo says, quote, "The sugar that saturates the American diet has a barbaric history as the white gold that fueled slavery." As Muhammad writes, quote, "Most of these stories of brutality, torture, and premature death have never been told in classroom textbooks or historical museums. They have been refined and whitewashed in the mills and factories of Southern folklore, the Romantic South, the Lost Cause, the popular Moonlight and Magnolias plantation tours so important to Louisiana's agritourism today. Also, as of today, Americans on average consume 75 to 80 pounds of sugar a year. Today, the sugarcane farming business, for the most part, excludes African Americans. Today, the tentacles and remnants of sugar slavery continue. And this story about sugar should appropriately leave a bad taste in your mouth. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
For generations, our country has been Mother Nature's steward, setting aside and protecting important expanses of public lands for posterity. But what if these lands and natural resources suddenly got a steward who was a predator rather than a protector? Meet William Perry Penley. For more than 40 years, he's been a fringe political operative and lawyer for a network of loopy anti-environmental extremists intent on helping corporate predators grab and plunder our national assets for their private profit. And now, holy Teddy Roosevelt, developer-in-chief Donald Trump has named Penley to be acting head of the Bureau of Land Management. Yes, a guy who favors the wholesale privatization of your and my public lands is to oversee the future of America's public lands. Indeed, Penley has been lost in the ultra-right-wing weeds for years, screeching that, quote, the Founding Fathers intended all lands owned by the federal government to be sold. That's nuts, but nuttier yet is Penley's listing of a sextet of demons he believes are at war with Western civilization. Radical environmentalists, federal bureaucrats, the media, academia, Hollywood, and ignorant Americans who are easily panicked into believing in things like climate change. But this caped corporate crusader saves most of his manic fury for the environmental movement, bizarrely proclaiming that its millions of adherents, quote, don't believe in human beings. Also, with funding from the Koch brothers and Big Oil, Penley has been a fanatical fossil fuel proselytizer, even declaring in a moment of rapture that fracking is, quote, an energy, economic, and environmental miracle. This is Jim Hightower saying, don't just keep an eye on this corporate extremist, don't even blink. For updates, contact Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility at peer.org.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1963. That was the day of one of the most iconic stands for justice and equality in United States history. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech to 250,000 people in Washington, D.C. But did you know the official title for that history-making event was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom? The popular memory of the March on Washington focuses on the fight for freedom, especially the right for Black Americans to access public spaces and the voting booth. But the march organizers also understood that economic justice was a fundamental part of this broader call for freedom. As Dr. King once famously asked, "What good is having the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger?" This emphasis on the importance of jobs and economic justice perhaps was most represented by A. Philip Randolph. He was one of the lead organizers of the 1963 March on Washington. Randolph was the president of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the nation's first national African-American union. Starting in World War I, Randolph fought for an end to employment discrimination. His efforts in planning the March on Washington were an extension of that earlier work. Organized labor had a mixed response to the march. The AFL-CIO did not endorse the march. Walter Reuther, head of the United Auto Workers, shared the stage in Washington, D.C. with Dr. King and A. Philip Randolph that day. It is important to remember the connection between the call for civil rights and the demand for the right to employment, fair wages, and dignity at the workplace.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, because, hey, there's a lot more of us where we come from. Well, where it is currently here locally, 65 degrees expected, high of about 103 to 105. Excessive heat warning advisory, active warning actually, is still in effect. And but fortunately, we will have some maybe scouring winds in a few hours out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And currently they're light and variable out of the west-southwest. 20 to 30% chance of precipitation from a stray afternoon thunderstorm. And then thunderstorms tonight. That could bode ill or it could bode well. Thunderstorms do bring lightning that can start fires. Maybe not enough water to put it out. So we always hope for the water. We don't like the fires. Sunny skies tomorrow. A precipitous drop in temperature will only be around 95. All right. Winds will then be out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Grass pollen is low. The air quality index is still in the good range, though it has gone up to 49 parts per million. And the daytime UV index remains high at 7. Locally, barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.85 inches. Visibility is at 9 miles. And relative humidity is at 65%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. They do. London is 77 degrees and fair. Paris is 88 and fair with a heat advisory of their own. Rome is 90 degrees and fair with a heat advisory of their own. How fair is it if it's 90 degrees? How fair? Kiev is 82 degrees and fair. Kabul is 85 degrees and fair. Hong Kong is 82 and partly cloudy with an 80% chance of heads being cracked again, this time maybe with live rounds, not just a water cannon. Tokyo is 82 and mostly cloudy with a flood advisory, and we'll expand on Japanese weather at the chef's table. Sydney, Australia is 55 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is 75 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Belen Carreño of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Spanish warship collected 15 rescued migrants from an Italian port on Tuesday yesterday, having sailed halfway across the Mediterranean to fetch the small group in a high-profile maneuver that sharply contrasted with Italy's refusal to accept them. Madrid dispatched the ship a week ago to pick up the migrants at the end of a prolonged standoff between Italian authorities and a Spanish-registered private rescue boat, which had plucked more than 100 people, most of them Africans, from seas off Libya. France, Germany, Luxembourg, and Portugal had agreed to take the rest of the migrants, but only Spain, which traded angry words with Rome during the standoff, sent a ship. This is the kind of situation where you see countries taking political or symbolic actions that don't necessarily make economic sense, said Elisa De Pieri, a London-based researcher with rights group Amnesty International, adding that rescued migrants are usually transferred by plane. Italy, which lies close to Libya, denies port access to non-government rescue ships, especially those bringing those from the Dark Continent. Well, they've agreed to bring migrants ashore only if other European nations commit to take them, in which case the migrants are usually flown out of Italy in a matter of hours. After trading insults with anti-immigrant Italian minister Matteo Salvini, Spain's defense minister accused him of a lack of humanity. Madrid agreed to take the migrants and dispatch the warship on August 20th, intending to collect them from the still stranded rescue boat Open Arms. Hours after the warship, Audaz left Cadiz on Spain's Atlantic coast, the standoff ended, and the migrants were brought ashore on the tiny Italian island of Lampedusa. Instead of turning back, the warship, equipped with artillery and machine guns, finally sailed to Lampedusa last Friday morning. Its arrival broadcast by international news media, only to find the migrants would soon be transferred to nearby Sicily, where they were finally taken aboard. Wow, Salvini's playing a little bit of What's Under This is a full-scale Monty. Spain says there's no point in calling the ship back last week and arranging a flight for the migrants instead. We are going to be the first country arriving in Lampedusa and picking up the migrants. If we had canceled the ship operation and we had started a new plan to bring them by other means, we would have been delayed, a government source said. Amnesty said the saga underlined Europe's failure to deal with African migrants fleeing across the Mediterranean. It's become the new norm for rescue ships to be left in limbo for several weeks. It is a violation of human rights, Amnesty International stated.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Torrential rains triggered floods and landslides in Japan today, killing at least 2 people and prompting authorities to order more than 900,000 people to leave their homes, while another million were advised to move to safety. More than twice the usual rainfall for the whole of August has fallen over parts of the southern island of Kyushu over the past 48 hours, washing away roads, causing rivers to burst their banks and forcing the suspension of train services. A woman in Saga was found without signs of life, a term Japanese authorities use to describe people yet to be officially confirmed as dead, and she was found in her car after it fell into a waterway. One man was killed when his car was swept away in Saga Prefecture, while another man in Fukuoka died after being dragged away by floodwaters when he got out of his stalled car. Remember, it only takes less than 6 inches to knock you off your feet. Though authorities withdrew a warning of historically heavy rain by afternoon, it was expected to keep falling overnight, prompting additional warnings about flooding and landslide, and then more than 900,000 people were ordered to evacuate. We'll keep abreast on this news as it happens, and we're going to have to get out of here. Of course, you know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. We'll meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.